Sure. All right, let me call to order the November 2022 Southbury Zoning Commission meeting. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, seating of alternates. I'll seat Rod in place of David. Introduction, Sonia McAndrew, who is our Zoning, Inland, and Wetlands Administrative Assistant. Thank you for stepping in and helping.
Hi, how are you?
All right, let's start. Public hearings, number 22-064Z, PDD 18, Dean Apostolaris, applicant applying for removal of modification of detailed plans, and proposed text amendment number 27 to install 2 electric vehicle charging stations at 100 Main Street North. All right, with regards to that, I'll read into the record a letter from Cutter and Fetter LLP, who represents the owner, addressed to me, Chairman Giroux, Southbury Zoning Commission. Dear Chairman Giroux and members of the Zoning Commission, on behalf of our client Volta Charging LLC, we respectively withdraw without prejudice the pending petition to amend the Town of Southbury Planned Development District PDD number 18 regulations to permit electric vehicle charging stations with digital displays filed on September 8, 2022. Volta truly appreciates both the Planning and Zoning Commission's consideration of its request to amend the PDD number 18 regulations, and for taking time to meet with Volta and provide comments on the petition. Should the Zoning Commission or town staff have any questions or comments regarding this matter, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your consideration. Kristen Motel from Cutter and Fetter. So they're withdrawing their application without prejudice, or without prejudice. So that's the end of the public hearing. No public hearing. So let's move on. North Point Ridge LLC petitioner petition to amend zoning regulation text under Section 12 Plan Development to provide for design and density bonus for mixed, affordable, and market rate multifamily housing. You're up.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Gail McTaggart. I'm from the law firm of Secret Casting Apartment, offices at 555 Heritage Road. I sure can. Can I just press the button? Yep. Let me try again. I'm Gail McTaggart. I'm an attorney at Secret Casting McPartland with offices at 555 Heritage Road in Southbury. And I represent the applicant with respect to the amendment to the zoning regulations, the PDD, Section 12 regulations, to provide a density bonus for affordable, mixed affordable, and market rate housing. And I think that the only thing that's new that I have that's been submitted since our last hearing was I'm in receipt of a letter or a memorandum dated October 25th, 2022, from SLR, which is a 2-page memorandum, fairly short, and much of what's in here I actually agree with. Personally, I am aware that SLR, and before them, Malone Broom, has done a lot of good work with the town of Southbury, and I appreciate that and understand that. The second, number 2 on this, talks about the powerful tool that the PDD is. Because it's that powerful tool, which is why we looked at it and worked with it to provide this alternative. We're not only aware of it, but the state statutes in 2021 were expressly revised to provide for planned development districts as an appropriate tool. And that is along with allowing for density bonuses, which the statutes specifically provide for. The statutes now specifically require that the zoning regulations provide for multifamily housing and provide for alternatives and affordable housing. So this zoning amendment does all of those things. Number 3 is something I agree with, and that is that the current zoning regulation would require compliance with a technical supplement that sets a cap on the number of multifamily units. That can no longer be done under the state statutes. So I agree with SLR that it's properly removed. We removed it as part of our proposal. And then the last one was not so much a criticism, but a question about whether this commission would want to consider whether we should have standards in the regulation, specific standards in the regulation, or just leave it open and flexible for somebody to just come in with an application. I have several reasons why we did this the way we did. First of all, the Plan of Conservation and Development does look for providing standards for multifamily development. Secondly, a density bonus has to be based on the ability to comply with some standards. And that density bonus in this case is to supply a certain number of affordable housing units, 20%. And there needs to be a provision in that regulation that tells us what that means. So it needs to be there. The rest of what we did was because we used what has been consistently been used for more than single-family housing, which would be along arterial roads. In Southbury, it happens that except for commercial, almost all of those are R60. It's how it's zoned, how everything is zoned right now. So if you went down Route 6, if you go down 172, all along those roads, the zoning is going to be R60. What we put into the reg was setting some boundaries because the regulations need to consider the consistency with that neighborhood that's there. So we took the requirements for the R60 zone and said, whatever you come in with this flexible amendment that you're going to provide to do this kind of density bonus, you have to be consistent with certain of these underlying requirements. So it just set some boundaries so that what comes in before the commission will be consistent. Numbers of stories, the amount of land that's covered, all those sorts of things. They're very, very, they're not hugely detailed. They're very, very consistent with the underlying zone. And then they also provide in the state statute that our regulations shall provide for protection of historic features and factors. So we did that. So the provision in there was the historic districts in Southbury are also located along arterial roads. And in all of those cases, no matter which piece of property it is, if it's a 10-acre piece, it's big enough that you can do a setback and get that setback from the historic district boundaries. So we considered that no matter which piece of property it would have a size that would enable the configuration on that piece of property to protect the historic factors. So whether it's South Britain or if it's along Main Street South along the historic districts there, in all of those cases, if a piece of property abuts that historic district, it will have a setback that protects the historic district. So those were the factors that we put in, and so I think it would be, I think it would affect the ability to get the right composition into this commission if you had absolutely no standards in that regulation. And there have been standards before that for 2 units, 3 unit type duplex units that you could have done before our proposal, they would have had pages of standards. So we didn't put the kitchen sink in here. We just set some boundaries. And so that's what we did. And then the last one is, this commission has always made decisions on the merits. I've never felt like if I came in or our engineers came in with a poor application, it would not be approved. I don't have any circumstance that I can think where this commission just approved something because of who appeared before them. And I'm sure that's not going to happen here either. So I really don't see that as having been a problem. What I will say is that the PDD regulation in Southbury has been very effective. It works very well. It gives a tremendous amount of discretion to this commission, which means that applicants have to come in and do a really good job in what they present to you, because you have a right just to turn it down. It's legislative. You're making a legislative decision when you act on a PDD. It's a zoning amendment. It's just like you can't sue the legislature for the laws that they pass. This commission doesn't get sued for that kind of thing. Unless you make a procedural error, which I'm sure you won't, you have the ability to look at it and say no. And that means the applicants that are going to come in under this regulation, if they're going to get this density bonus, sharpen their pencils, figure out how they can get a proposal that works with the town, that makes sense for this town, they're going to have to come in and prove to you that it's a good plan. And that is what PDDs have done. And I've been around long enough to know that there are PDDs that have been turned down, and the applicants then came back in, and they brought better plans. The Green is a good example, where the pumpkin patch was in Southbury. Went through a couple of different plan proposals, and finally came up with a plan that really, really worked for the community. So I'm not saying that a PDD is the only way to do this. I know the Planning Commission is looking at doing an HOZ or some kind of a zone or some kind of CHAPA housing, or maybe some kind of participation of public and private investment, or whatever happens with that. It is not mutually exclusive. It does not mean that there shouldn't be some provision right now to get this going. And when I say get it going, I mean it means that somebody can actually get some of this multifamily 1 to 2 bedroom housing that's not age restricted, that could be available to people that are workforce, young people that come into the community, provide some vibrancy into this community. I think the alternative that this proposes is excellent. So using the PDD means that there's going to be a real ability to get a good fit for whatever the location is that's picked. And the locations, I think there was some discussion last time about that the PDD allows this to, if somebody has a piece of property and it works and it's located along or near an arterial road and they can bring it in and get it done, they can make that happen. It means that all of this affordable housing doesn't sit in one neighborhood, one spot that becomes a stigma. It allows it to be within the community in ways that it is more in keeping with all of the community. So we don't end up with pockets of this kind of housing. We did, our clients, as we looked at this, did start off with a 10%. We understood from the SLR comments that we should consider 20%. We did change this to 20%. So before the public hearing started, we had increased the numbers from 10 to 20%. And then I think it's important in all of this paper that we provided to you, I hope you've read it. There's a lot of words, but there's also very, very compliant. This proposal is very compliant with the Plan of Conservation and Development. And that Plan of Conservation and Development is the existing one. It's compliant with the housing plan that looks for using density bonuses. It's consistent with the affordable housing plan that is looking for providing rental housing, 1 and 2 bedroom type housing for individuals. It meets lots of the standards that are in there. And some of the letters that we provided went through and outlined all the way through the Plan of Conservation and Development and showed that it was there. There was a statement made that somehow we had to be 100% compliant with the Plan of Conservation and Development. That is not true. What this commission has to do is just do, when it approves a regulation, to make it in consideration of it. The statute says that a zoning amendment that you make to the zoning regulation shall be in accord with a comprehensive plan of zoning. That's the zoning regulations and the zoning map. That's what that is. And that's a very, very broad generalization. Our courts have said if you've got something that looks like it could be positive for the community, which this would, because we have over 30% of the people in our community that could use this housing, so it is positive for this community to allow an alternative that could provide for that kind of housing. So we know we can meet that test. So in consideration of is just that. It does take 4 votes. The Planning Commission did not find that it was consistent with the Affordable Housing Plan. I provided you with a letter that goes through the Affordable Housing Plan and the objectives. There just isn't much, there's almost nothing in there, I could say. There is nothing in there about multifamily housing. This is multifamily housing with an affordable component, and there's nothing that prevents it. It is not inconsistent with it. And it meets lots of the requirements of the Plan of Conservation and Development for providing alternative housing. So we think that we worked really hard on this regulation. I think some of you know, but for the record, I've been doing land use for about 40 years, represented a lot of towns, including this one. And I think that this regulation works. It's thoughtful. We didn't just throw it together and throw it at you. We've spent a bunch of time thinking about it. We've looked at the state statute. We considered the 2021 statutes. If this commission approves this and an application comes in and you decide that you don't like the way it works, you can change it. There's nothing written in stone here that means that you can't amend it. And my thinking is that because it's a PDD and because it's flexible and because you have discretion, that you'll be able to work through what you like and what you don't like about proposals that come before you. So you'll have that ability to do that. The concern that it's how much weight it puts on this commission, it's no different than the PDDs that you have already. You have, I think, 20 or 21 of those right now in the town. There's never been a problem with this commission being able to review those, make decisions on those. It's the same flexibility, the same discretionary decision-making that you have. Remember, it's a 2-step process. So if this amendment is approved, the applicant will then have to come in with a zoning text amendment to you. So it's going to be the second zoning amendment that's discretionary. So this one's discretionary. The one that comes in will be discretionary. And then if that gets done, then it ends up with a detailed plan and all the kind of planning that goes along with that. So there's a big process that's similar to the same big process that you do with every PDD. So that part of it is, it works. It's very, I think it's comfortable for this town because the process has been in place for a very long time. Administratively, this commission knows how it works, and it has worked. So with that, I'm hopeful that the commission will take a look at this and approve it and get a start to at least providing an alternative under the zoning regulations that could give rise to some really, really good projects. There have been some discussion about the 8-30G. It's true that we have a statute in Connecticut that allows an applicant to come in and throw out the zoning regs and just bring in a proposal. And that, if you want to talk about no standards, that's the proposal with no standards. This one at least has some boundaries. It's got some concern about making the plan consistent with the underlying zoning. The 8-30G, as long as you can get water and sewer and provide those kinds of infrastructure, you can do that. So, and it could be that there could be good projects that come in with 8-30G. I'm not saying that they have to be horrible projects, and I know that many times they aren't. But it also means that you don't really have any control over it. The commission doesn't. The commission is just left with what's presented. And I've litigated those on behalf of communities, and our statutes in Connecticut make it the responsibility of the commission to have the burden of proof on why they turned down an 8-30G proposal. With this regime, like we've set up, the burden of proof is on the applicant to come in and show you that it's a good project. So it's been a win-win for Southbury, and I'd really like to see this kind of possibility there for providing this kind of housing. I don't think you're going to get a flood of applications, because any piece of property that's going to do this is going to have to work economically for the owners. Somebody's going to have to find a piece of property that works. They're going to have to make sure that the infrastructure's there, that they can support the water and sewer. So it doesn't mean that every 10-acre piece of property in the town is going to open itself up to this. The other thing I will say to you is we did take a look at the zoning map and the GIS, and there are many, many properties along Main Street. It's not one piece of property that can meet this requirement. These requirements could apply to other pieces of property. So there is potential for that. But before you're going to get an affordable housing project, there has to be land that's committed to it. And that means somebody owns it. And it has to be somebody who owns it, who comes in and says, I would like to do this. I'm willing to do the density, get the density bonus and give the commitment to the 20%. So I'm asking you to approve it. And I would like to, if there's public comment, I'd like to have a chance to reserve to respond to any of that or answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
All right,
Okay?
thank you. All right, for the record, we should probably read into the record the memorandum from SLR dated October 25th that Gail was reading off of and commenting on. So this is to the zoning commissions from Robert C. Collins, AICP, Principal Planner, SLR International Corporation. Subject, proposed zoning text amendment, Section 12, Plan Development, North Point Ridge LLC applicant. This memorandum summarizes the comments we made at the October 12, 2022 public hearing regarding the above caption application. 1, I want to further clarify that the role of SLR International Corporation in reviewing this application, the Planning Commission engaged our firm to undertake a review of the proposed amendment to assist the Commission in formulating a recommendation to the Zoning Commission pursuant to Section 8-3A of the Connecticut General Statutes. Subsequently, and after Ty Kern resigned from her position as a planning administrator, our firm was asked to take on the role of planning responsibility in a temporary quasi-staff position to assist the land use boards and offer guidance as needed. In that capacity, we prepared a separate memorandum offering professional guidance to the Zoning Commission on the North Point application. Our firm and its predecessor, Mylon and McBroom, has provided technical guidance to Southbury as one of its clients for nearly 4 decades. As the town of Southbury planning consultants, whether we are in strict consultant role or in our current role in Southbury, we identify issues, respond to the commission's questions, and offer solutions. Our professional responsibility is to the town as a whole. Ultimately, it is the Land Use Commission that sets policy and makes decisions. We are here only to help and offer guidance on the specifics being proposed. 2, Section 12, Planned Development Districts, is a powerful tool that has been used very successfully in Southbury to allow proposed land uses that are not specifically articulated elsewhere in the zoning regulations to be presented to the Commission for consideration. It enables the Commission, acting in its legislative capacity and in consultation with the Planning Commission, to approve or disapprove a proposal when it is in the best interest of the town. Aside from some general guidelines, there are very few site-specific requirements contained in Section 12, leaving the Commission to exercise its best judgment as to the merits of the application. In essence, the Commission is approving an amendment to the zoning regulations and zoning map when acting on a planned development application. 3, Section 12.6.2 of the regulations require multifamily housing to meet the guidance in Technical Supplement 2 of the Plan of Conservation and Development. Limits the density of such development to 3 dwellings per acre and caps the number of multifamily units in Southbury. As we noted in our prior memorandum to the Commission, a limit on the total number of multifamily housing units in town is contrary to the July 2021 amendments to Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes and should be removed from the zoning regulations as proposed in this application. 4, in the North Point application, the applicant is introducing very specific development standards related to minimum acreage, location, density, affordability standards, and other requirements into Section 12 that would be applicable to multifamily housing that has an affordable housing component. In essence, these amendments will reduce some of the flexibility the Commission now has in considering uses under Section 12.6 of the regulations. The Commission may wish to consider if the better alternative would be not to require a minimum acreage or locational standards and address these aspects of the development on a case-by-case basis, as it now does for any other planned development application. If increases in density are requested by an applicant to support affordable housing, the Commission can consider that as part of the overall application and not be bound to a specific provision added to Section 12 as now proposed. 5, during the public hearing, it became evident that the applicant and its professional consultants enjoy a good reputation in Southbury. While we concur with that opinion, that reputation or site owned by the applicant should not be a consideration at this time, since the proposed amendments should be applicable to other sites with similar attributes elsewhere in Southbury. We hope these comments will be helpful to the Commission in reaching a decision. We will be happy to discuss the matter further and answer any questions you may have at continued hearing of the Commission. So, basically, what they're saying is we can move forward with the recommendations or the changes to the text as being proposed, or we can just, I guess we can deny it and just go along with the PDD regulations as they are written, and they can come in and make the changes accordingly. That's how I read that Section 4.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond?
You can correct me if you want.
The thing that we could not do is come in without these changes and propose this. It would not work. First of all, we were stuck with the supplement number 2, which is
Right.
incorporated into
Okay.
the reg and has a bunch of standards in it that don't meet the state statutory guidelines. And if you look at the purposes at the very beginning, the purposes when you get to multifamily are all Multifamily is defined as less units, by the way, but when you get to multifamily, we can't meet, there's no way to meet that standard and provide multifamily housing that's more than 2 or 3 units in a building. And there's no way to meet that standard
Right.
without incorporating those standards from that supplement that is, that we've challenged. So I don't agree that we could, if we could have come in without amending this reg, we would have been here. I can tell you that. It will not work.
Okay, well, I do take it as a good approach. I think we should be considering the text as it's being proposed, the changes to the text as being proposed. I do have a couple questions on the text itself.
Oh, sure.
Under section 12.6.4.2, you have a qualification of slopes greater than 25%, which the existing zoning regs call for 15%. Can you address that?
Let me speak to my engineer, okay?
Mark Lancourt for the public record. I'm with Dymar, located at 800 Main Street South here in town. 25% is a common element. The 15% that is in the current even supplement 2 is really in terms of, you're looking at steep slopes. Steep slopes is, common elements 25%, even under the subdivision regulations. So the 15% we thought was a bit an overreach, and therefore we came back to looking at the 25% because that's more common in the practice of planning. That's the reason.
All right, one section I do have a problem with is 12.6.4.9, parking spaces. You want one space for a 1-bedroom unit and 1.5 for a 2-bedroom unit. I think that's high on the low side, unless you can prove otherwise.
Well, so on parking, we've
Through
got,
traffic and parking studies.
we're gonna end up doing a traffic and parking study anyways, but when it comes down to it, if you take a look at the current state statutes, in terms of the number of parking spaces, we're actually above what the current state statutes are suggesting under any multifamily.
What do they suggest?
It's one, period. Whether it's 1 or a 1 or 2 bedroom, it's 1 parking space per unit. That's it. So we've actually took a harder look and said, let's go to the 1.5, okay? And,
Well, our regulations call for 1.5 for all units.
excuse me?
Our regulations call for 1.5 spaces for all
All
units,
units.
whether it's a 1 or 2 or 3-bedroom, I believe.
But I'm not familiar with what you're currently proposing because it's not been completely made public. But, you know, when it comes down to the parking, I mean, it's gonna come down to a parking study. And we'll provide documentation that recommends or suggests what it's gonna be in terms of population, and in terms of number of parking units, so.
Well, you're setting a standard, though, for a minimum.
For a minimum.
All right. Which I presume we can ask for more if we want more.
That's right. That's right.
Also, Gail McTaggart, for the record, I think we did look at the parking, but we're talking about 1 and 2-bedroom units, so we're limiting this to 1 and 2-bedroom units. So the number of cars is at 1.5 probably works, but it is a minimum number.
Anybody have any other questions? All right, since this is a public hearing, I'll open it up to the public. Any members of the public have any commentary or anything to say?
How's everybody?
Good.
Just very quickly, I just wanted to just reiterate the letter from the consultants, because I agree with everything that Mr. Collins mentioned in there, especially that the application can come in without changing the PDD. I agree with them, we can do it on a case-by-case basis, as well as your concerns about the parking and the wells, et cetera. That was the reason why the planning commission sent a negative recommendation back to you folks, because we thought all these things need some time to be ironed out. And that was the reason why we originally did that. And then we had asked for the application to be pulled and wait till the housing overlay zone was completed, the study through the Affordable Housing Committee, which is subcommittee of the Planning Commission. So all these things are the number one reasons why the commission did that. So I totally agree with the consultants, and I think that it would be best if we, well, you guys will make the decision, but to make a negative decision on this at the moment and revisit it in the future. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Any last words? I mean, we have to close the public hearing tonight unless we can get another couple days out of it.
The only thing that I guess matters to me, that if there are questions, we need to do it while the hearing's open. So if any commissioners had any further questions for us, I wanted to make sure we had done that. We meet the requirements of the state statute for approval. This is consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development. It does provide alternatives to allow for affordable housing. It's consistent with the state Plan of Conservation and Development. It's a consideration that I know you will give, because we know from reviews of these kinds of regulations that once all of this is put onto the record and it's being considered, you will have done that. It's also consistent with the comprehensive scheme of zoning, because we've taken into consideration the Archillia roads, the R60 zone, the underlying zone that's there, and use that map to do that. We're not approving any specific site location at this time, so that part of the consistency will go to waiting until an application comes in and see whether it works. We think it's a well-written, well-put-together, workable regulation that will give you the ability to have the flexibility to provide this in places that you find that are that work for the town. If they don't work, you won't approve them. So it doesn't hurt. But I do not believe we could just come in and have applied. I have an applicant that would love to have come in and just applied for a PDD and just said, this is something not permitted by zoning, and we can bring it in. But if you look at the first four sections of that PDD and those paragraphs, you have to comply with one of the paragraphs. And once you're into multifamily, you're stuck with those standards that are set forth in the supplement. So there was no way to do this without providing it. The other thing that we did was, by putting the 20% in, we've given an incentive for somebody to come in, really provide a positive number of units into the community. So, and that was a good suggestion of SLR's, and we've complied with that. So we would like you to find that it's in compliance with both of those standards, and it's well-written. The parking spaces, we did, when I just looked at the zoning table, so for 3 bedrooms units, you do 1.5 spaces. For 1 and 2 bedroom units, you might do, under your zoning regs, I was gonna pull the table out again. But the state statute right now for affordable housing is saying that you have to provide, you have to allow us to have one parking space for these units. We increased it. We made it 1.5 because we thought that was better.
So you're saying the affordable housing units will have 2 bedrooms?
Would have allowed one space, period, yeah, per 1 to 2 bedroom unit.
Okay. But that's what the state statute calls for, the affordable housing portion of it. But you still can have 1-bedroom units that aren't affordable
Right, but the
housing.
1.5 gives us more than the 1, I guess is
Yeah,
what we're
what I'm
trying.
saying is,
Yeah.
how many families have 1 car?
Yeah, and it's not.
That's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, and it's not to say that the plan that comes in won't have more parking spaces. So it's setting a minimum.
All right.
Towns that could pass an ordinance to opt out of that, one space provision of the state statute. Southbury hasn't done that. One of the towns I represent did do that. or is in the process of doing that. But we set a higher minimum than the state statute.
Anybody have any other questions? None at all? Since there's no other comments from the public, if we close the public hearing, we're done on getting any information from the public or any outside entity. It's all amongst ourselves. We have to discuss and decide whether this text, as it's written, you can't change anything. As it's written in front of us right now, we either say yes or no to it. If we want to change, like my 25 to 15%, that won't work. It's got to go through the public hearing process again. So, am I correct in what I'm saying, Tom? So if we close the public hearing tonight, it's a done deal. We either approve or disapprove.
I know your counsel's here. The zoning statutes were changed to allow minor changes to be made, but you can't make something broader. You could-
What's a minor
Right.
change?
That's up to you.
All right. So, I mean, we can keep the public hearing open. Yours, Tom, you think another 11 days?
I did the math, I think it's 11 days of the extension, the 65-day extension period that the applicant can bring.
I hate to do that. I like to close it and if we do close it tonight, we don't have to act on it tonight. We have 65 days to act on it.
Correct.
So I think what we'll do is we will take some time, maybe not 65 days, but till the next meeting, have an interim meeting, a working session, and really go through and make sure we're okay with this text before we do anything with it. Is that the route you want to take? Mark?
Well, no, just to say that this section 12 touches on a lot of other parts of zoning regulations. There's lots of references to other sections within it. And I haven't had a chance to
Well,
run all that down in my mind.
most of the, other than the stuff I brought up,
Be helpful.
yeah, most of this, yeah, other than the 15, 25%, the 1.5 versus 1 parking space, et cetera, everything else is, I think is workable. But, again, I'd like to have an honest discussion amongst all of us to make sure we're okay approving this thing as it's written. All right, so do I hear a motion to close the public hearing? Second? Any other further discussion? All those in favor? Aye? All right, it's closed. We will, and I'm gonna recommend that we have a work session, probably 2 weeks from now. We'll set a date and time. You wanna set one now? Well, 2 weeks would be the 23rd, that's Thanksgiving Eve, forget that one. How about the 22nd? It's, when I say a work session, people can come and listen, but there is absolutely no participation from the public. It's strictly amongst ourselves. Tom, would you be able to attend and guide us?
On the 22nd.
I mean, legally, can you do that? You're not,
You can ask for additional staff input and legal input, but it's helpful to know in advance what you need help with.
right,
If you want to turn.
all right, well, probably ask for your guidance along the way, so. If you're available,
The 22nd of November, I'm available.
okay, so 22nd? Any specific time? 7 o'clock?
Yeah, so,
7? All right, 7 o'clock the 22nd. We'll find a room here somewhere in Town Hall. All right. Anything else on that? I guess I'm done. All right, unfinished business, decisions, discussions, decisions. Okay, we already took care of PDD 22064C. Number 2, North Point Ridge, we're gonna have a special meeting, work session on the 22nd of November. And hopefully show up on the December zoning commission meeting to make a decision. Moving on to other business, zoning enforcement officers report. Jordan.
You all have the report in your packet. Begin with, the site is various locations along Main Street South. Background is, since taking over the position as CEO, there have been a number of duties and regulations that needed to be understood before effectively enforcing. Things like permit and violations becoming clear. I've moved into enforcing sign regulations, mainly along Main Street South. Based on the regulations stated below, there are a number of violations regarding temporary signs along Main Street South, as well as other various locations throughout Southbury. On October 19th, 2022, I spent the better part of the day traveling to businesses to speak with owners regarding their signs and their requirements to obtain the proper permits. There were a number of individuals and business owners that were unaware of the regulations or their violations. However, a significant portion of the business owners I spoke with voiced their dissatisfaction regarding the regulations and their perceived unreasonable language pertaining to their business or business location. It was conveyed that some business owners utilize temporary signs in order to direct traffic that would otherwise be unaware of the business location. This is either due to the business being set back within a plaza, or in some cases behind a building altogether. When I was asked what could be done in order to help these businesses or to possibly change the regulation, I advised business owners to come to a zoning commission meeting at Town Hall in order to voice their opinions and speak to the commissioners directly. Below is a list of signs encountered, removed, and business owners contacted, and their compliance or disapproval with the regulations. You'll notice there are roughly 31 businesses and a number of signs that I either pulled altogether because there was no business or the sign wasn't placed on the actual business's property, or removed the sign and then had, the discussion with the business owners or employees at the business regarding the signs and regarding the need to get proper permits. I won't go through every instance that I encountered, but, there are a number of businesses. I think there are a number of people here today related to some of those businesses. I've made a lot of friends in the last week. I can definitely say that. The regulations are stated beneath that section. 10.8 temporary signs and 10.8.4 temporary signs in commercial districts. And I believe you're all pretty familiar with those regulations as they stand, so we don't have to reiterate that. Moving on to the next piece of business, a notice of violation. There are 3 individuals involved in this, so if things get jumbled around, please let me know. J.D. D'Amato owns the property at 10 Maple Lane, with his adjoining neighbor Fabrizio Guerrera residing at 42 Oak Lane. Mr. D'Amato of 10 Maple Lane rents out his property and therefore does not visit it very often. Tom Kokoska, an attorney representing Mr. D'Amato, spoke with me on the phone on October 13th to relay a complaint on behalf of his client. Attorney Kokoska stated that Mr. Guerrera of 42 Oak Lane had built an encroaching shed along his property boundary without receiving the proper zoning or building permits. According to Attorney Kokoska, following the construction of the shed, Mr. D'Amato spoke directly to Mr. Guerrera to try and resolve the issue of the encroaching shed, to which Mr. Guerrera is said to have agreed to address the shed's encroachment. Mr. D'Amato was surprised to learn at a later date that the shed's encroachment had not been addressed, and an additional wood structure was now constructed that now crossed over into Mr. D'Amato's property. A follow-up email from Attorney Kokoska on October 14th, 2022, states much of the same, with the addition of unapproved tree removal on Mr. D'Amato's property by Mr. Guerrera. I requested to visit the site to confirm the encroachment, and Mr. Kokoska approved the site visit after consulting with Mr. D'Amato. A site visit was performed on October 18th, 2022, and upon arriving at the site, I spoke with the tenant, who was very busy, but he was expecting me and permitted me to continue with my site investigation. It was my observation that not only was the shed in violation of the necessary building setbacks as well as being constructed without a permit, but the wooden structure does in fact appear to be crossing into Mr. D'Amato's property. Following my site visit, a notice of violation was sent to Mr. Guerrera on October 19th, 2022 by certified mail. After receiving the letter, Mr. Guerrera and I spoke over the phone. It was agreed that Mr. Guerrera would have both structures removed in 30 days, with a site visit being conducted by me on the 15th day, to show the wooden structure on the neighboring property had been removed. On the 30th day, I will conduct an additional site visit to confirm that all the violating structures have been removed. And additionally, GIS depicted a pool on Mr. Guerrera's property, which was confirmed during my site visit. It was confirmed that the pool does not have a permit associated with it. I informed Mr. Guerrera of this violation, and he agreed to file for an after-the-fact permit for the pool. An update on November 7th, I drove to the site to inspect if the wooden structure had been removed as per my 15-day limit on that structure needing to be removed. Upon visual inspection from the roadway, it appeared that both structures had been removed. Mr. Guerrera has now stockpiled all of his firewood in the front portion of the property along the roadway. Due to me being out of the office this entire week for classes with Casio, I was only able to perform my follow-up inspection, and I've been unable to follow up with Mr. Guerrera regarding the firewood stockpile as well as the lack of permit for the pool. So that is an ongoing issue that has been followed up, is being followed up on, and is looking like it's going to continue into the future. So, for your information, just wanted to bring that to your attention.
All right. Any questions? No? All right. Good report.
Thanks.
Correspondence? Do we have any correspondence? Well, there is, last item, any other business day property, so we can cover all this other stuff. No correspondence? Right, minutes, approval of October 12th, 2022 minute, meeting? Any issues with those minutes? Okay, all right. Any bills? No, we don't spend any money. What? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written? Second? All those in favor? Aye, all right, okay, thank you. All right, last item, any other business that may properly come before the commission? So I'll leave it open up to the public. Obviously, I think Jordan's introduction to signs in Southbury was an eye-opening one, so I'm sure that's what a lot of the conversation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Curtis, and I am the owner of Piper and Dune. We're located at 134 Main Street South in Bennett Square. I am here to talk to you, along with many of my fellow business owners, about the signage that you brought up just a few minutes ago. Specifically, I would like to talk to you guys and give you a little bit of background on what I would like the committee to commission, you guys, a committee, commission, to kind of consider on our behalf. Clearly, we have an issue with what I'm calling, in a very distinctive manner, a sandwich board, 2x3 sandwich board on average, right? Versus the, what I call the stake signs, like the political signs, the little cheesy ones. So what I'm going to I want to thank all of you, first of all, because I know that over the course of the past year, year and a half, you guys have been kind of lenient, and I don't know if it's because we didn't have anyone in place or because you were intentionally trying to help everybody during COVID, but it was noticed, and we do recognize that there was some leniency there. So that said, thank you, but we need more help. And one of the things that I just wanted to highlight were that, over the past 2 years, we've had consumer behavior changes. We have had, God knows, inflation, recession we're dealing with. We're dealing with consumer buying habits that have changed. Sorry, I'm a marketer, so I throw these things out, and you can just tell me to stop. But it's important, and they're all real. And, it's important for us to try to reach walkers and passerby people and communicate somehow, some way with them. Most all of us that are here tonight, to Jordan's point, have issues reaching consumers. People don't read the newspaper anymore. And even if they do, you don't have $300 for an ad for 1 week. We are small businesses. We own one property, most of us. We are not TJ Maxx. We are not, 1,200 stores. It is important for me to point out to you that small local businesses, and I think this is very relevant and sometimes very much forgotten, they provide 67% of jobs in the United States, all small business, and that's according to the SBA, and 68% of consumers' money stays local when they shop local. These are critical for Southbury, right? I'm a lifelong Southbury resident. I've lived here my whole life. And, I've watched this town grow, and it's fabulous, and we love it. And we're not trying to do anything harmful or make it look tacky or any of these things. We just need to try to reach people in a civilized manner. The difference that I think is important to make is that when people shop at chains, and I know the town loves our chains, right? But when you shop at chains, only 50 cents on every dollar gets put back into the community. And these are really critical. And we have to do more, frankly, to support small business. We're not doing enough. In fact, the current rules are making it very difficult for us to do what we need to do, and that's to make a living, right? And support the community. We all give back, every single one of us gives back charitably as well. The reason that I wanted to bring this to your attention was because these sandwich boards, and I do classify them differently than the little lawn stake signs, they provide awareness to our business, whether it's just some very simple messaging that is a logo, perhaps a directional arrow, something along those lines, that we can't get when, you're behind a building or way off the road and not visible. We don't have billboards that are basically neon signs like they have at the plaza. My little store, Piper and Dune, competes with, say, the paper store. I'm looking at their sign at the traffic light tonight, and I want to cry at the size of the footage of their neon strip, and that's curbside road. I have nothing. I have a little tiny sandwich board that I could get put up 4 times a year. It's not enough. It's not going to be enough for anybody who has one little store and not the national ad campaign or the budgets of the chains. It's just not. And if we can do it in a tasteful and manner, I think that's what we're asking for your help to do. one of the things that I think helps is if we perhaps consider changing the way we look at sandwich boards from the rest of what you guys call, under the same umbrella, temporary signage. So you call, whether it's that little flimsy one that's up for a 1 or 2 week event, you know, you treat it the same way on your rules as a A-frame, small A-frame sandwich board. I would like to propose that a sandwich board, when utilized on the business's property, on the premise of the property, that should be treated differently than a silly little, you know, like the political ones that we saw, you know, littered down Main Street this week. It's different because it's on the property. We're trying to gain awareness with that signage of the store. We're not necessarily making it a sale today, or, you know, tag sale this week, or the content of the sign, number one, is different. And the location of these signs are always in front of our store somehow, as close as you can get, right? So from that perspective, I think there should be a distinction where the sandwich boards perhaps are a semi-permanent sign. They're not a permanent billboard marquee like we have at the, you know, at the plaza, but they're as close as we can get to a semi-permanent sign for awareness. So I guess what I'm really asking is that you guys consider maybe amending, whatever you guys call that, zoning, rule, law, policy, and maybe allow for a semi-permanent sign that has perhaps slightly different rules associated from the temporary garden stake signs, lawn, whatever they're called. I would really like for somebody to understand that when it's at the business itself, in other words, I'm not putting a Piper and Dune sign down, you know, by the church or down by the green or in front of somebody else's business. I am simply using it stationary at my point of business, as I think all of you guys probably would too.
A question for you.
Yeah.
Where is your sign located now?
It is on the
Pepper and
inside of the sidewalk at the corner in front of Homer's house, at Bennett Square. It's so, when you try to come in, you can't see our stores from the road.
How many stores are in Bennett Square?
I honestly don't know. Like, I'm right next to Annie's. There's like little clusters. There's people behind us.
Just a rough guess.
Well, see, Bennett Square is like two different, he's cobbled two together, where Leo's is,
Yeah.
and then the upper section. I don't know. Does anybody here know? How many?
Say it's about 15 units,
15,
and some of those are doubles occupied, so
yeah.
probably looking somewhere around.
I understand your dilemma. And
But not
we-
everybody-
We want to work with you, but the problem potentially is, we could have 15 of the signs you described on a short strip of property along a road. That becomes a little too much.
I've personally dealt with 5 just in that alone. 5 businesses
I-
with signs.
There's got to be some way of solving the problem, but potentially that's what it could work out to.
Well, there's 2 entrances to Bennett Square. So take that 15 and divide it in half, because
Still a
maybe
lot.
some would be on the side or the other.
It still could be a lot. That's what I'm saying. Take, for instance, Union Square. Union Square probably has 100 units. No, like, maybe 50 units in Union Square. And if each one of them wanted a little A-frame sign, they'd be lined up along Main Street and up Peter Road. And we don't want, I think that's one of the things that we've been dealing or trying to deal with for many years now. I'm not saying that we don't want to work with you and the rest of business owners, but we just can't let this go crazy, where everybody wants a sign on Main Street.
Okay, but isn't the onus on all of you to come back to us and say, we can't do that, Chris, but we can do this? We've gone back to the drawing board and we think this could work. You guys have the rules, you guys have the policy and procedures to, the know-how of how this works, maybe you grant us a larger sign and it's a shared something, or is the onus on us to come up with the solution, or is the onus on you? Maybe I just don't know. Because if every time somebody brings you something, you say no, that's easy to do, right? So,
Yeah,
I
but we
would
don't- I don't
hope
wanna
that
do
our
that.
zoning board would then push it back to us to say, we can't do that, but here's maybe 2 or 3 things you could do. There's got to be more than what you've been doing for the last 40, 50 years with these signs.
Well, the sign regulation was just recently changed, I say, Brad, how long ago? You're the oldest one here, other than me. 5 years ago? We spent a long time rewriting the zoning regulation for signs, and it's been in effect now for, maybe half a dozen years. And you're up against that, I understand that. We have to change it again, is what I'm hearing, which means.
Well, if you want to support your small businesses, something
Well,
has to
I
be
think we do. We
Yeah.
absolutely do. That's part of our
Yeah.
job.
Terry, how did you guys get to 1 week or 1 month out of the quarter?
Yeah, how did that come about?
That was a long discussion, and many other zoning commission members who are no longer on the board had input on that. So, again,
It's
going
not
forward,
frequent
this is
enough
a
for
whole
us,
new
is the problem.
board.
Well, no, the reason
So-
I ask is, for example, Union Square, have you ever had 15, stores come and want a sandwich board?
Or even in Bennett Square?
I've never seen that capacity.
Maybe not. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility.
Sure, it's a
I mean,
worst-case scenario.
That's the worst-case scenario, and I don't think the town, I know the townspeople would not want that, period.
Wouldn't you consider that, like Bennett Square and all of that, those big places of business, maybe even Main Street South itself, basically all fully businesses? If they didn't wanna see that, they probably wouldn't come to Main Street South, cause it's where all your businesses lie in your town. And, if Bennett Square has a full 90-degree spot of, the road,
Mhm.
it's all business. If you don't wanna see it, stay in the back roads, and if you need to get something, you know that we're here for you, It's like, I just, called when I got a new barber at my barber shop, even when I opened up here just about a year ago, no one knew about me, other than maybe call Instagram and Facebook or something, but I put that sign out there not knowing your regulations, which we did figure out and everything, and I do have the correct permit now for it, but that sign alone brought me probably a good 30, 40 new faces to the shop. And they're grateful to know that I was there. And I would undoubtedly say that Main Street is your place of business here. So it shouldn't be considered ugly to people. It should more so be considered, a blessing that we're here for everybody's sake,
I agree with what you're saying. Okay, all right, you're right.
I personally just think that if there's a way to standardize the sign, if all the signs were the same, if you said, Chris, there's a potential for worst-case scenario, 15 different signs could go up on the same day at Bennett Square, I would say, okay, what is the road frontage from this street all the way around this corner to this other entrance? Put us 15 feet apart. If they're all the same sign, it's clean, they're not those little temporary blow-away signs, there could be something that could be done. And there
I
is
agree with
certainly
you,
a
and
lot of space there to do that. And even at the Union Square, there's plenty of space to do that.
I agree with the way you're thinking, think something has to be done, but Town Hall will be swamped with phone calls if they saw signs like that from the various residents of the town. That's what's been happening over the years.
Well, I think
We have to
perhaps,
somehow solve the problem.
yeah.
Before we go any further, anybody wants to say, you have to state your name and address.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Angela Garofalo. I actually just opened a boutique in town. I've been open 4 months. So I will say, putting my sign out has been huge for my business, for people to even know I'm there. More people have been, oh, I'm sorry, Minx Boutique? More people have been coming in saying they have come in just because they saw the sign on the road. But from what you're saying with the 15 signs being worst case, could the possibility be that maybe there is a different level, monetary-wise, that people purchase their ability to put a sign out, and that would defer people from not putting it out all the time? There might be a higher package for people who want their sign out more. Maybe they just want it out once a week. They might pay the town less. It could be a better situation for the town to make more money, and also the business to decipher how much they want their sign out.
Well, right now, we pay the $88 with the convenience fee. And you get 4 dates the year. And Jordan's like, Chris, you gotta pick your 4 dates. Okay, I gotta pick my 4 dates. I can't have them consecutive, right? Can't do that. Once per quarter only. It's a little silly.
30 days or more.
Whatever, 30, yeah.
I educated a lot of people, I'm sure you.
Yes, let's get that straight. So the 30 days per quarter. But, you know, the point is, business changes. I had to pick this week when I was getting my permit, I had to pick the whole year. Now, I'm sure I could change it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I suppose I could
If you,
change
if
it.
if you need
But I
to
had
reach out,
pick in
I'd be happy to
advance
work with you.
when I wanted it, you know. We're reacting right now. My business isn't much older than yours, a little over a year, right? Like, we all have very young businesses. And at the rate that small businesses fail, the only way people are really finding us are from that sandwich board right now. And
Absolutely.
by pulling the plug on it, or recently hiring Jordan, it's honestly created a lot of stress for us, you know. And I know that these things don't move quickly. God knows I know that. I just need to know that somebody's paying attention and going to try to help us. And whatever you need from us, please ask us, you know. We want to work with you to come up with a solution. But aside from, you know, I'm not a policy person, I'm a marketer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a strategist, but I am anything but reading this stuff. I can't sit there and understand all the detail. I just need for you to tell me what you think could work. And to your point, maybe there's a small sign, a large sign, maybe there's a different rate, maybe this is a revenue generating idea for the town, God knows. I don't know, but we're willing to listen and try whatever you think, but what we're doing now is not working. That's clear. So we need to try and do something to help everybody.
Jordan, what can we do?
Sounds like we can get me fired.
No, Jordan,
That
we
would
like
fix a
you.
whole bunch.
We want to work with you.
Oh, I'm happy to work with you as well. Just given where we're at right now, we've only just kicked this off,
Yeah,
okay? I understand that there's been frustration related to the upfront and personal realization that this is the way it needs to be, and that is a big departure from where it has been previously.
yeah.
I totally understand that. I'd say let's try for at least the time being to work out how we can manage how it is, because that's where we're at right now anyway. If you ever need any assistance, you can come to me, call me, I'm readily available. I've worked with everyone in this room practically to try and figure out some type of schedule. I've called them just to make sure they're permitted so that when they come to this meeting, I don't have to sit here and go, well, if you want to change regulations, frankly, you're not permitted, and you have a sign out front.
Yeah.
Angela, you do have to get yours on the commercial property and off the interior sidewalk of the town property. I've been meaning to reach out to you, but again, I'm happy to work with everyone here and not go out and pull signs. Previous people have come and just taken the signs. They didn't have the conversations with the business owners, they didn't do the
I thought that was
upfront
very
thing.
nice of you to
And that's
do
what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to work with all of you. We're, I think, in the first week of this, maybe two. Some of you just got permitted last week. I've been out of the office all week, so honestly, I haven't seen anything new come in. So I'd say for the time being, maybe we just see how arduous then this can get. If you are experiencing significant downturn in business and you really
How
think
about
it's
this? We
related
are.
to.
I am, I can promise you that. My business is doing this.
Well, don't you have the billboard ad currently up as well?
I did that. You know what I did? I did. And you know what? That was ridiculous because
I'm
it was
sure it's
blocked by
not-
the trees that the town owns and nobody could see
Right,
it.
but it's one of the most prominent pieces of advertising
It's
that we
blocked.
have.
You can't get it for another year, maybe a year and a half. And it cost me almost $1,600.
I don't doubt
actually
that it's
more.
expensive,
$1,800 for 1 month.
but is it like, what is the relationship between that? What is the relationship between, is it the sandwich board? Like,
Yeah, I mean.
It's
there
tough
were
to
times
determine.
We had been, over the course of the past little over a year, that we were told to take the sign down. I didn't have a permit, I couldn't put it out, and I see this dip. But what I'm saying is, I'm throwing more money at that. We're seeing, and it's not just me, I'm speaking in general from other business owners I've talked to. We're in a recession, people. This is not much better right now than it was, in between inflation, recession, and everything else. It's not a great time to be, putting on the brakes, so to speak, to small business. It's just not.
Yeah, I'd like to say that too. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I understand what you're saying, let's just keep it status quo, but
Yeah.
we're going into fourth quarter. A lot of these businesses are hoping to make 30 to 40% of their income.
For the
And
whole
now
year.
we're being told, you know what?
Right
You're
now
gonna
is the
hope
worst
people
time
know
to
you're
become
out there and don't go to Old Navy or don't, and don't come to the small business because our sign's not out there.
Right.
That hurts us. That's big. And especially right now. In
Timing could
January,
not
that's
be worse.
fine, because.
Yeah, you want to pull the plug
Yeah,
in January?
Pull January 1st, but
We could close the door for 3
we
months.
have 2 months to
starting
make a
January.
huge part of our income, and that hurts.
Yeah, it hurts significantly right now for really, I don't know, all of you too, I'm sure. Oh, come on up. Okay, I'll let these guys talk.
Anybody? No? Next.
Go ahead, I'm out, you're in.
Or you could reference something. Sit down, please. Did I give you 2 copies there?
I forgot to give you want my notes?
Good evening, Board. My name is George Claros. I'm a resident here in Southbury. Oh, I thought you were my wife for a second. I'm like, what? I'm representing Southbury Baking Company, which is located at 250 Main Street South in the plaza. Just wanted to address the board quickly on the ordinance 10.8.1. The subsection obviously restricts the amount of time the sound, and from my knowledge here, it was issued back in 1988 originally, and since then, I guess someone revised it 6 years ago. Since the ordinance came to be 30 years ago, the town landscape obviously has changed. The businesses have grown. With the addition and development of large commercial properties in Main Street, a significant population increase has created more traffic, which inhibits the ability for drivers to scan past the shoulders of the road while they're driving, allowing to make note of businesses that exist in smaller or setback plazas. Contributing to limited visibility are oversized or improperly trimmed trees on Main Street. The town requires the installation of trees near the roadway in front of each business when the property is initially developed. Over the decades, many of the trees were not properly maintained or trimmed as they grew, and now many of them can't be trimmed to allow for better visibility to structures, permanent structures or signage from the road. The trees in front of 250 Main Street South, which is the location of Southbury Baking Company, the Commons Plaza, currently block the visibility of the sign and the plaza itself. When we signed our lease on 250 Main Street, about 75% of the retail stores did not, 75% of the retail space was not occupied. The spaces were just empty. Many of the people of town weren't aware of this new business there unless we had the sandwich board, they would have driven by. Many newer commercial complexes have larger buildings with high visibility due to smaller trees that have not grown to the size of those 30 years or older have grown. This creates an unfair commercial situation for smaller businesses as opposed to the larger big box businesses, which sets the commercial real estate rental rates to occupy newer or larger commercial properties. Currently in the town ordinance, and I can read it, but you already know it, sets for 30 days per each quarter. For the consideration of the zoning board, we wish to allow sustainability for small businesses in this town. I would ask that you amend the section 10.8.1, extending the limit of 30 days per quarter to an unlimited or reasonable compromise number of days acceptable to the commercial businesses in the town of Southbury, and make a new classification of a semi-permanent signage. Respectfully, George and Kathy Clare of Southbury Baking Company. Small story to share with you. When we first we've been in business now 13 months at this location. It's our first brick and mortar location on Main Street. When we first were getting the permits to occupy the facility in the town here, when I would give them the address, they didn't know where the address was. And the few people that did know the address, they said, "Oh, that's the Blue Plaza." I said, "Well, no, it was blue before it burned down, now it's tan." So it's kind of the invisible plaza, and you'll find that with many of the other businesses that have been here, you know, some of the buildings 30, 60 years, they kind of disappear into the background with all the new stores and new complexes. So I understand the situation that you're facing. No one wants 1,000 sandwich boards up and down South Main Street or North Main Street or pretty much anywhere. But I think this group's more than willing to work with the zoning board to come up with a reasonable solution to this. I don't know what that is right now. Independently, I think we could work as a group and a team to come up with some ideas to share with you. And collectively, we could probably come up with a solution that's fair and reasonable that won't light up the phones in the town hall every week. But I thank you for your time, and I yield the floor to Rebecca.
Hey there, Rebecca Clamp at Rebecca Aesthetics, 316 Main Street South, just moving my business into Southbury. Question for Rebecca Aesthetics? Aesthetics, yes. My question for Jordan, for the scheduling of putting out our signs, what's to keep, let's say, 15 businesses in Bennett Square from scheduling all at the same time? Is that what I'm suspecting, that you're just trying to keep signs from all going up at once, or what's the purpose behind it?
So in speaking with business owners, I kind of give them the agency to schedule how they would like. I've phrased it in two different ways. You either can leave it out for a span of 30 days, whether it's 15th to the 15th, 1st to the 30th, however you'd like to do it, so there's not so much back and forth and you're not arduously having to go out every night and pull your sign, or at least keep to a schedule. Some people don't seem very keen on that idea. The other option, I know Jake's Barbershop is doing something more along the lines of Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Essentially curating it to your particular business. The Southbury Baking Company isn't open on days, I believe it's Sunday and Monday. Monday, Tuesday. So things along that nature. If you were gonna go for the entire month, it doesn't really behoove your business to have them out Monday and Tuesday. As I'm getting things, you know, underfoot, that would end up being a consideration, maybe. There's too many signs going out this month. I would maybe ask that you go to the next month, or there's at least some leniency there. I haven't come across that issue just yet, especially in your plaza. There isn't too much. I know The nail salon in the back is permitted, as well as the local gourmet also has a permit to put out. So currently, 3 temporary signs isn't too crazy for that size business.
I guess my question would be, what's going to stop, let's say, 15 business owners from putting them out for Bennett Square? Or is it going to get to the point where you're going to have to turn away businesses from putting out signage, let's say before the holidays, when they're really trying to get customers in for retailing, and now they can't put a sign out because there's too many signs out there? I'm
There's
concerned
nothing in
about
our
that.
regulations that keeps me from allowing you to put out your signs on your permitted dates. I haven't come across that issue yet,
Can you
so
have multiple businesses all permitting for the same date? Are we concerned about that?
there's nothing in the
aspect?
regulations stating that I can withhold from people scheduling at the same time.
So
There's just
potentially
a
we
time
could end up
restriction.
having 15 A-frame signs or sandwich board signs all at the same time within a 30-day window?
It would be a confluence of events. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely possible, but what these regulations currently allow for is for that to only happen during a small window.
Okay.
The same way we all kind of just dealt with the election signs being up.
Okay.
Those were for 30 days. It was annoying to some, but the reality that, in just a month after November 8th, it's going to be cleared up again.
Okay.
The idea that this could happen for 2 months or 3 months, I could understand why the public would have an issue with that, or it would weigh on some people who, whether or not they're coming to the Main Street South for businesses, or they're just going to enjoy a walkable Main Street, which is particularly unique to Southbury, and something that a lot of people who have lived here their whole life really cherish, because it's not something that a lot of towns have.
Right.
It kind of keeps with that aesthetic and at least keeps a limit on it. I'm not saying that,
So it's not limiting how many signs per complex are put out necessarily, just that it's not going to happen for very long, is what you're saying?
right,
Okay.
yeah. And if it just so happened that 15 businesses really wanted to do the, November to December holiday months, again, there's nothing in my regulations stating that they can't. There's some stipulations about congestion. So as I'm willing to work with every single person here, I would just walk in and have a conversation. Hey, can we move this? You're permitted to use it. You're permitted to have it out there. You're all within your rights, but, it's getting a little congested. How about we go to the corner of the parcel with 2 or 3 of the signs and we move a couple around? And I'd be more than happy to work with, the patrons at that point. But
Okay.
again, I haven't really come across that yet.
Okay, yeah, my concern was just that if we were moving into, you were saying that you were concerned about having 15 signs, and I just didn't know if that was going to be the same issue with this ordinance being in place, and what that would look like later on down the road, if then you're limiting businesses from being able to put out signs because there's too many out there, and what that's going to look like for holiday seasons or higher retail seasons.
Yeah, and if they're permitted, there would be no limitation. If there was congestion, if there was sightline issues, if everyone put them right at the, exit and people are trying to leave and they genuinely can't see traffic, that's a safety concern. We would just have that conversation, but I wouldn't limit you being able to put out your sign during your permitted, days or however you scheduled your sign.
All right, thanks for answering.
Of course.
Thanks.
I think like the plaza, like the Green, like Southbury Plaza, they all have hard, real signs, not sandwich boards or any temporary signs. But both those facilities have sign programs, okay, that all the units, the owner of the plaza or the unit, leaseors, they come up with a program on what the signs look like, and in the case of what you're trying to do, maybe building by building, you have a sign committee, and you decide what the sign should look like, how many signs can go out at one time, maybe every other day you have a sign out or something like that, to try to keep down the number of signs. I'm just thinking out loud right now.
I mean, I loved the idea of having a tiered system. I think that that's a great option for the town to make revenue off of that as well. And then for, businesses that really rely on that, that's a good investment for us. I think that's something to really consider too. So,
Can I ask you, Jordan, is there, and I'm sure there is, probably a dumb question. I'm sorry, Chris Curtis, Piper and Dune. Is the rule about these, I have only seen them like once or twice. If you had a sign, like a rectangular sign, the size of, we'll call it the paper stores, in that marquee, or whatever you guys call those, we wouldn't be able to do an electronic version where Piper and Dune came up. It's that same one narrow footprint, and then, you know, the next business rotated. Would those things ever be allowed or never?
Right now, no, they're not allowed.
Blow their mind.
Dynamic signs are not allowed.
I'm just thinking out loud as much as they are. I mean,
But here again,
it's one clean sign, but
Currently
like a
electronic.
slideshow.
currently, it's not allowed.
That's just under electronic signs.
Doesn't mean that it cannot, we can't consider it and put it in the regulations, but we have to go through the whole
I'm
process
not
of
looking
change.
for like a big neon, you know, ugly kind of thing. I'm just suggesting size-wise, if it were something that were to change to keep the size.
Unfortunately, as the regulations are written right now, that type of sign is not allowed.
Okay. Because I've seen it with like high schools and things like that, and I just thought maybe it would be,
How's it going, guys? I am Jake, and I own JB's Barbershop. I'm also at 250 Main Street South. So respectively, I would say going up and down the road, there are obviously, as he stated, a lot of buildings that are, I'd say there's more up front than behind. And I would say that just, you know, maybe generously from the showing, not too many people may care about all of the signage. I think there's a lot of buildings in town that do have very good, sight from the road and probably wouldn't really care about having a sign on the road. For us, where on one side, our building is completely blind from trees. I think it was the Glamification Project or something. I don't even have a sign on that because I wasn't gonna pay for something that no one can see. We did come to you guys and there was pruning of the tree, and I would say that it helped the visibility of it, but it's still right in front of it. So I would say that with the process of looking at it to where 15 signs may be, you know, at one plaza, I don't think that that would probably be a thing continuously up and down Main Street South. For there is a lot of buildings that have great sight from the road. So I don't think it would be too congested on us having signs at our plazas with maybe, call it, you know, generally in this area, I'd say around maybe 7, 8 businesses that are trying to get the word out to probably all of the other people that have been established here for years, or people already know that they're here, whatever. I think for people at least starting up and really trying to get the word out, more people are concerned less about having that sign than I'd say some of us that really do need the sign. I think some businesses really don't need the sign and probably wouldn't bother you guys for it, you know? And in some sort of way, I would say that it makes the town feel a little bit more homey, knowing what's in it rather than passing by and just looking at a building saying, well, you know, I wonder what's in there, you know? And, you know, in my hometown, if there's no sign in front of something, I probably wouldn't stop in there just on the matter of fact of, I don't know, and it would probably be a waste of time. But if I know that, you know what, there's a bakery in our spot, and a nail spot, and a massage spot, and a dental spot, and a barber shop, maybe I could get 3 things done in one day that, you know, I don't have to travel maybe to, I don't know, you know, wherever to go to. Knowing that it's in my town is a huge thing. And like she said before, keeping business inside with your residents in town is really a huge impact on your town, not only for the town, but also for us trying to, you know, really survive and be successful. I think that's a really big thing. So I don't think it would be very, very as crazy as we're looking at it with the signs, 15 plastered. I don't think that would really be the case. I think it would be a little bit more subtle than what we're really thinking that it would be. So if you guys could take that in consideration too, to, you know, really opening the door for us to really keep those signs out there. I think it would be good. In the tiered system, I think, you know, I really as well agree, like maybe some person only needs it out there one day a week. Maybe some people do need it out there as much as it could be. I'm closed on Sunday, Monday. Most people are closed on days where people are traveling. Saturday, I am open, but Sunday, no one's really open. And that's a big day of travel other than for the big guys. So with people coming inside the town or to the main parts of it, they're probably not coming, you know, on a day that many things are even open. So they're probably working most of the time anyways. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there, Lori Grabowski. I happen to own Southbury Kitchens, so I'm not in a back thing, but historically I was at Union Square for 10 years. I was one of the people that worked on those. I gave a lot of input for signing as a member of a nonprofit that was struggling with the sign rules at the time, promoting events for fundraisers, and I was struggling at Union Square because Union Square didn't have a sign, because Union Square had a brick wall at the corner that said Union Square. And everything on record said that was our sign, that and the Ion Bank sign, which used to be a different bank, used to have a different name. So we struggled for a really long time because we weren't allowed to put a sign out. But I'm just putting out there a few ideas. The mobile station has now Alliance, the trucking company. At some point, they got to put that big brick price sign out at the street, right? That's new, that sign, in front of mobile.
That's-
They both have those big.
That's allowed because the state requires that.
Oh, okay, so when you travel to different parts of the country, there are areas that are considered low-impact development. It's supposed to be, all the businesses are there, and there's housing and all that. But the space can still look beautiful because of the regulations that are in place. But what they do is, there are signs closer to the road. So Union Square got a sign, I left, and Union Sign has a sign, but in my opinion, it's still too set back and there's too many names on it. When you drive by it, I don't think there's anyone here that's gonna tell you the names on that sign.
No.
Other than the businesses you know. So my suggestion to my fellow business owners here and to the commission is that something needs to be done. There needs to be signage that's closer to the street. This town does not have enough numbers on the plaza. You don't know when you're pulling in, what number you're pulling into. No one ever knows that they're at 77 Main Street North when they pull into Playhouse Corner, Dunkin' Donuts. They don't know it. If a fire truck comes, EMS, it could be a person looking for the health department. Nobody knows where they are. We're gonna be dealing with that at that end because we own those units. I don't have to deal with the landlord anymore. At Union Square, when I was there, we had the marker signs put at the entrance that say 385, so that people know coming in off of Peter Road that they're at 385, and when they come in off of Main Street South, they know they're at 385. So I'm just putting out, I'm listening to everybody here. I came to be a fly on the wall for a few reasons tonight, including talking about bigger impact developments in our town, larger, mixed-use housing and all that, different housing options. But I'm just compelled because I'm hearing these struggles, and I was in that spot 8 years ago, and you might think, well, Union Square, how bad could it be? But I was where the smoke shop is now, and you could not see me past the tree. You couldn't see us. That goes on a back angle, and that was a weird spot to sit unless somebody pulled straight in and was making the left to go to De Palma's. Then they would see Southbury Kitchens in front of them. Also, there's restrictions on the amount of how much light. Union Square, you can't have a lit sign. You have to have a sign with light projecting on it. At Playhouse Corner, we were allowed to have a sign that was a certain size with light projecting off the top of it, because every plaza, it's predetermined what sign's gonna be allowed to be hung on it. So I've had the battle, and I've had it as a member of a nonprofit also, and I appreciated at the time the rules that were put in place, and I appreciate the efforts of enforcement as a member of the community. I live here, I come down past Union Square and make that right every day, and I see all, you know, whatever signs, whatever's laying around, and I want the town to look a certain way, but yeah, I want to be really successful as a business owner, and I want my fellow business owners to be successful, but I think there has to be signs that the landlords work, or the owners, like I'm an owner, work to get your sign closer to the road, lit properly, clear, visible. You don't put Susie's Nails, manicures, pedicures, and massages. You simply state the name of your business, which is usually self-explanatory, and then people see your business name, and they see it, and it's a good-looking sign, close to the street, professionally done. And I think it's gonna take business owners, landlords, and it's gonna take the commission to be able to make some changes along the way that are gonna allow these signs to be closer to the street. Because that's the problem with the plaza signs. They're all so far back that when you're whipping down the road, you're not seeing it. You can't see it. And I'm hearing a lot about the trees, and that's really unfortunate, because we shouldn't put, I love trees. This town is absolutely gorgeous because of the trees and the street lamps. I know Dolores planned it to be this way with a lot of other people, and I appreciate. There you go. And Dolores told me, she gave me such a hard time over and over and over again. Me and Dolores were always knocking heads, and she said, "This is an advertising town, Lori." And I was like, okay. And we didn't have, you know, Facebook then. We didn't have social media, so we were just depending on scrambling to put that sign out there, and having whoever the, you know, enforcement was snagging our sign and walking up to the door and going, "You can't have this out there." So I was kind of happy when I could fill out a form and put it out there and know that somebody wasn't going to carry it back up to me. So again, I'm just putting out these guys are in a really tough spot. And then I think that you are all, and I always appreciate your efforts all these years. I think that there are changes that the town can make that will still keep the beauty, and if you look to other places where there is low-impact development, you still know, you could be going past a Target, and it's not a big lit sign, it's just some nice-looking sign with low shrubs around it, with a light on it that says Target. And I think there could be solutions for you guys, so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I mean, I certainly can say, I mean, I'm speaking on myself, not necessarily on behalf of my fellow commissioners. I'm very sympathetic to that. I mean, I own a business as well. So, I mean, I feel like it's a part of our obligation to figure out how to help you to be successful. I mean, I feel very passionately about that, and a lot of you spoke very passionately about it. And I don't think anybody on this commission wants you to lose your business or lose revenue. It would be good for you, and it would be good for Southbury. So, and you know, just putting it out there that maybe something we can deliberate, you know, on a more, you know, maybe more detailed basis at another time. But obviously, you know, there's nothing we can do about the, you know, the rules that are in place right now.
I think all we can say right now, Jordan, maybe can't turn a blind eye to something that's very obvious, but I think you can try to work with the different business owners and try to, I don't want to say bend the rule a little bit, but.
Especially if they're permitted.
And I think in the meantime,
But yes, I would be more than happy to do exactly that.
You guys really have a lot of people calling you and complaining?
In our zoning office, yeah, I can personally speak for that. Catherine works in our office too and handles a lot of those conversations, but yeah, it happens quite often. I'm not gonna be prejudiced, but a lot of Heritage Village individuals love to call for that exact reason, but it does happen quite often.
And what's Jordan supposed to do, not enforce the regulations?
And we know he has to. I think he's been great. I'm Kathy Claris. I own Southbury Baking Company.
Thanks, guys. That's a complete shift, and I appreciate it. Thank you. It's good to hear that occasionally. We're like 2 hours in, but that felt nice. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Claris. I own Southbury Baking Company. My husband George was up earlier. I want to thank Jordan. He's been great. I know you're only doing your job, and you've really come into a tough spot because people are very passionate about signs and have been for decades. So
And rightfully,
I
it's their
feel for you.
business. I
But I
understand.
think you've been great. I think you've been helpful. And so I have a question about the trees because we're at 250 Main Street South. And I did a few months ago call Roadworks because I noticed the trees that were really blocking our building and our sign were kind of hanging low over the sidewalk. They looked like they were going to be going up into the power lines. So I did call. Pat and Connor came out. They were great. They looked at them, and they said they would go back to, I think, Mark Cody. Is that who's in charge of that, or no?
It's our building official.
Yeah.
It'd be the, no, not the building official, it'd be tree warden, which would be the public works director. Correct.
Public Works, okay. So they went back and they did get permission to come and do a little bit of tree trimming, not enough where it really made a big difference with our sign, but I was happy they were at least to get off the sidewalk and all that. But like my husband George said, those trees really do block our building and they obliterate our sign. So I know they're town trees, and the arborists they're very protective of those trees, and I love the trees too, so I totally get that. But is there anything we can do? What would be our steps for those of us that have trees really blocking the buildings or signs? What do we do? I don't want to take the trees down, but they do need to be, properly trimmed. But they weren't they wouldn't do any more than they had done, and I appreciated them doing what they could, but
So-
who do I talk to about that?
So my office shares an office with the planning department. And just in kind of hearing what's been going on with their commission, which I'm not personally involved in, and no one else in this commission is involved in.
Okay.
There was a subcommittee that was previously put together for that express purpose, to maintain the chairs throughout Southbury Main Street, to maintain the trees, just the general aesthetic. That subcommittee was disbanded.
Okay.
Since then, just recently, I believe in the last planning commission, it was brought up to kind of reenact that subcommittee for this purpose, because they're getting a lot of calls for this exact reason.
Oh, really? Okay.
Correct. So, not really an answer, but a potential avenue that currently might be worked on through the planning commission. Again, I can't speak for them,
No, I
but
understand.
just what I've heard in the goings-on, that is something down the line that might be looked at. Planning commissions, just like this one, are readily available to the public. If the public wanted to express their need for such a thing, that could get the ball rolling in the same way that, this commission is considering your issues as well.
Right.
So,
Okay, I appreciate that.
Generally speaking, I think issues of signs, temporary signs, whatever signs, I suggest that business owners get together, form a committee, and work on what you think would be the proper way to handle signs. Come back to us, and we can, again, form our own subcommittee and work together with you to change the regulation. We have to change the regulation to do it.
Yeah, I think everyone just wants to respectfully look at what is the ordinance now and just try to just do a little shift to make it easier for the businesses in town. Do you know how many, Jordan, signs there were out that you've had to go? Like, how many of us had our signs out along
So-
Main Street that you had to go in and say,
I personally dealt with 31 businesses
that had signs out?
that had signs out. Some of those businesses were just scattered throughout Southbury. I came across them
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
Heritage Road.
Right.
That
I
we
came across them
definitely do not
on
want.
Roxbury.
Yeah.
Some of those people
Yeah.
are repeat offenders,
Yeah.
so there are a number of people that constantly try and push the boundaries.
Right.
I don't think those people are in this room, because I don't think they actually care to follow the rules, one, and then, get the things done right so that they can follow the rules properly.
Right.
and it could benefit them. There are just people out there that are just going to, live on the fringe, and that's kind of why I'm here, to deal with those people. Unfortunately, you guys got caught up in the fray as well, but, it got us all in this room having a conversation and
Which is good,
potentially moving things forward.
right.
But yeah, 31 businesses, some had multiple signs, so you can start extrapolating that number out.
Yeah.
There, I mean, you can, my little car in Southbury, it practically filled up the back seat.
Yeah,
They're all just
yeah.
sitting back there, and that's not to mention the ones that I walked inside and hand-delivered back to the patrons.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
it's been quite a bit. I've been busy.
very busy. Okay,
The bottom line is, I think the commission is willing to work with the businesses in town. It's not gonna be done overnight,
oh, I know that, yeah.
okay? But I think we will do the best we can to try to accommodate everybody's concerns. Again, I understand the people here from a business point of view, but we also have to answer to the general residents of town who have their own opinion of what the town should look
I
like.
know.
So, I mean, we're trying to bounce back and forth.
There's gotta be a
between-
happy medium.
Yeah.
There has to be. And I don't
And
think anyone
I
here
think
wants to
there
see
is.
30 signs on the
But
street.
I think it'd be
like,
great
yeah,
if we
don't.
could work together with a committee of business owners
Right.
and try to work out some new regulations for these types of signs.
Yeah. We appreciate that. Thank you.
With regards to trees, Mr. Sullivan, since I see you in the back, you were part of the treescape committee, weren't you? You don't? Come on.
I'm the guy who did it. I'm the architect of the plan. I'm Hugh Sullivan.
Nice to meet you. I'm Lori Kowalski. It's beautiful. I love our streetscape. That's why I moved here.
You see multiple sign owners.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't just give credit to Dolores. Look at him sitting in the back. Is it possible to make this a first quarter thing? If you could,
State
your name.
Sorry, Angela Garofalo, Minx Boutique. What can we do about starting fourth quarter and this becoming a bigger issue right now for the businesses in town?
I think what I'm hearing.
Because I feel like we might be more in a rush to fix it, only because we're trying to make our money in the next 2 months. And that's a scary thing.
I think as a commission, understanding that, yeah, the fourth quarter is probably your biggest money-making quarter
Yeah.
because of the holidays. I don't want to say, let's turn a blind eye, but.
Essentially, there's a number of people here today that have gone through the arduous process of getting permitted and making their schedule. I even granted pretty much everyone here the extra quarter this month because it's supposed to be per calendar year. So you're supposed to get re-annualized every January 1st, but, I've.
We thought it was fiscal, that's what happened.
Calendar year,
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately. And me being me, I'm trying to read the regs as they are clearly stated. But I'm happy to work with people if we need to, figure out scheduling, or if your signs happen to be out and they are on your commercial property, not on the town right of way, not cluttered. I know Minx Boutique, JB's Barbershop, the massage parlor, I'm sorry.
Massage parlor.
Is that derogatory?
So on that
Please
note,
educate me. State your name and educate the CEO.
my name is Trish Eastwood. I own Natural Balance Massage at 250 Main Street South in the Commons. This has been 20 years since I've been in business in Southbury. I really don't have anything that much more to say, except the tiered thing sounded like it could be workable, because some people will pay, some people won't, some people will pay more, and sometimes money is what talks. But what I really want to say is, I live in Heritage Village, and I never once complained about the signs on the road.
Noted.
I'm just teasing you. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you for your time, and I'm probably gonna hit the road soon because I'm tired, but it's called, it's really massage therapy.
Understood.
And-
Thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, that particular plaza and those particular businesses, there's a number of them. If they remained uncluttered, if they remained, you know.
So if it's uncluttered.
Let's just do our best to keep things clean looking, so I don't get calls and,
If you do get a call, could you just tell them that we don't live in the middle of the desert?
can do, absolutely can do.
You guys have been extremely generous with your time.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
And
We
the time
appreciate you guys listening to us.
And the time you allotted everyone to speak, I just want to point out, I think you're very generous.
Well, you're welcome to show up anytime you want. This is a public forum, so. And you're all residents. So continue working. We want to work with you.
And we appreciate that.
And we,
Show the staff and say this is important, it's truly appreciate it.
it's always been a real issue, going back to day, I mean, I've been on the commission for over 25 years, and it's been an issue. Wasn't as much of an issue 25 years ago, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And you keep on hearing, the town wants to stay, it's a little farming community. It's not a farming community anymore, okay? We're off of 84. We have a lot of other issues we have to deal with, and we have to deal with them the right way. So we have a lot we have to take a look at. And it's always best to try to get everybody involved and help us out with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Hugh, you're next. Okay.
Thank you.
Just pass something out here. For the record, I'm Hugh Sullivan. I'm an architect and planner with Bennett Sullivan Associates in Southbury, Connecticut. Before you this evening, because I'm seeking guidance, and over the last couple of months, there really hasn't been, land use personnel available to ask these questions to, and I just said, let me come before the board. It's Southbury Green, which does have a signage program through a PDD. There used to be, as the first sheet states, a Pier 1 Imports. The tenant has left, and they're getting a request from the commercial market to bring in a new tenant, and they submitted the sign, and they sent it to me, and unfortunately, I rejected it. They're not happy with me. I'm not in a position to reject, but I am the architect and the planner of the project and the PDD. Signage at Southbury Green has had a few hiccups in the last 5 years. A few of them I'd like to correct, but I don't have the ability to correct it. So I told them that if they're ever going to do any other signage, let's try to solve it before, because a lot of times, and I'm Hugh Sullivan, I know you're new here, but you're not going to be familiar with 25 years of history regarding a project. And it's easy to explain in 15 minutes, but when it comes to signage, especially on commercial projects, not like local businesses, the group that comes and tries to sell the sign are a lot different than the locals. Okay, you got to be on top of your game to deal with them. The issue I had with the 5 below is the ancillary writing below the sign. And hot stuff, cool prices. I said, I just don't know how that would meet the intent And the tenants, the sign people would say, well, you know, isn't it really a freedom of speech thing? I said, you know, my father's a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer, my brother-in-law a lawyer. And I said, I wrote the sign reg for the PDD. That's not what was envisioned. And I realize signs are coming along now, and, you know, it would say, you know, Hugh Sullivan's, you know, restaurant, but it never had, you know, hot dogs, seafood, you know, all this ancillary stuff below it. What I want to get guidance from you on is, I don't believe that's what your commission has supported over the years. And I realize, you know, some of you are new here, but I'm really counting on some guidance from you as chairman on what your remembrance is of this. The other thing they wanted to know is, could they have the blue background, because that's their standard. And they said, you know, again, you know, color shouldn't be an issue. And I said, I understand that. And they said, you know, because the Staples, when Staples was there, all their bands were red. And I said, well, I'm not so much concerned about the blue. I'm not so much concerned about the 5 below. The height of your letters are determined by the PDD based upon the building that you're in. But the ancillary verbiage, I'm taking issue with. And I said, when I go to the board tonight, I will share that same feeling with them, because that's just how I've always been with your commission and the planning commission.
Is this a generic elevation view?
Yes, yes, yes.
Is it-
Yeah, no.
They're not
Yes,
planning
no,
to
no.
change the
I-
plaza to look like this. Oh,
I just
please.
wanted you to know that in this brick, where the Pier 1 imports
Right.
is where
That's where it should go.
it would go. And note that they're used to, those are like 4-foot letters. We don't permit that in town at all. We're only, at Southbury Green, you got 15s, 24s, and 30s based upon where your building is parallel to the street. So that's really my question tonight. You know, yes, I would certainly like them to be able to get a tenant to fulfill a space, but, you know, there are signage criteria, and I'd like to abide by them, at least telling them, so when they do come in for their sign permit, you know, you're in sync with the permitting.
We'll go by your guidance on this one.
Oh, I mean,
Absolutely.
okay.
I mean, I know there's,
I don't know what, you know, and I'm not familiar with Five Below. People tell me, oh, yeah, it's a great, I don't know anything about it.
Kind of a generalized
I have no idea.
dollar plus.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, can I just interject one moment?
Yes.
When I put my signs up, yes, I apologize. Now I'm sitting next to you.
Yep.
Lori from Southbury Kitchens. When I put my sign up at Union Square 16 years ago, it was made clear to me it could only be our business name, nothing extra underneath
Yep.
it.
That's right.
It could only say Southbury Kitchens, it couldn't say kitchens,
That's right.
bathrooms, and more. So I just want to put that out there.
Yep.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
The second question I have for guidance from you, because since, you know, after the COVID and how we get information, you know, from the commercial realtors to the street, and now we have an economic development director, you know, who's been helpful. There is someone who's interested in opening an upscale pet care facility. Essentially, I look at it as a high-end kennel that offers dog boarding overnight, doggy daycare, grooming, and training. It's in a business zone, the proposed. Yet, when I go there, it's not permitted. When I can't find where it's, unless something's changed, okay? I know, and I didn't follow it, your commission or planning or both of you know, kennels or dog care was about, but I know it was like in residential districts. Okay, but we're in a business district,
Is-
and,
I would think it'd be okay in a business.
but, yes, there was a pet store, but it didn't have, let me get the term, because boarding. Yes, oh, yeah, but they'll board it. And I'll be I mean, My wife and son have a dog that loves me, and I can't stand it, we have to go out of town if we go out of town and bring it to another facility, because there's not a lot around here. But when I speak to other people, and, there are lots of, dog owners and dog lovers and people with their dog licenses, they want to have a good place to bring their dog. Is this a business that you think could be entertained in our zoning regs? I just couldn't find it, because when I went there,
I know we
under
had talked
kennel,
about it, right, Ron?
it was blank.
Doggy daycare.
But that's its new term. And they are like, okay, they got adult care, they got baby, they got, and,
Excuse me, I'm back again. Does Dr. Ross board?
I don't know, Dr. Ross.
There's the answer. He's on Main Street South in commercial. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
On that note, you guys are probably done with me, so
No.
I say goodnight.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
So when I went through the zone and the B zones and I came across kennel, I was hoping for a P or an ES or an X. It was blank. I said, wow, I haven't gotten a blank before. And I just, yeah. And, and the thing is, it's a large, it could be a large structure of 10,000 feet. I mean, they felt the need in the marketing in the area here, based upon the veterinary services that are provided here for our pets in the community, is high. Well, I mean, 6 months ago, my wife came home, she said, I got pet insurance for the dog, and I was like, what? Whatever, but, yeah, that's what I hear. It's a whole new thing for me, but, I'm assuming does one just do a site plan and you bring it into planning? Is it a PUD, or if it's over 5 acres, you do a PD? I mean, I just don't know if it's permitted. And it's a new term for me, doggy daycare. It's a new use, Is it, when I go to other towns to look at their zone, they have it, And the biggest thing on it is, yes, it's like a new town, because I've done private homes where they have what's known as a hobby kennel, no more than 4 dogs, no more than 8 puppies, a separate septic system, fine, no problem. But, and the business district, they'll permit them, but they're starting to bleed into the area here. So, when you get 20,000 people, you could have, 500 people in a week who want to take care of a dog.
That's good.
Yes. So is it a use that throws you? I mean, it didn't me, but I just didn't know anything about it. And when I found in the reg, I couldn't, in this particular case, we were looking at a B1B and a B2B zone, and I don't have the regs in front of me, but I couldn't even find the use. It's not like it had kennel, so I went to kennel. But, my partner Kevin was like, well, maybe it's a medical. And I said, oh boy, you go sell it, I'm not.
I think, just what seems to me is just something that has emerged as a business model that
Yeah.
was not contemplated.
I agree.
Existent at the time when these were written.
I agree with you.
I think
I agree.
doggy daycare,
Yep.
using that term, is something we struggled with, and we started writing a regulation, but we never finished. Is that true, Ryan?
That was in residential.
Exactly.
Well, okay.
Exactly.
But there's no reason why we can't expand it or change. We never followed through and got it into the regulations, though, did we? No, I don't think so.
And
So it's
I
still hanging
remember,
out there.
I remember the discussion in the residential zones, okay? But it never bled to the business zone, or the industrial zone, or a manufacturing zone.
Well, what would you classify? Nothing we can,
I mean, if we had doggy daycare there and it said kennels, then I'd be off to the races. And I could tell this person, welcome to Southbury.
They hold licenses,
Yeah, oh yeah, they're certified by the state.
so there must be some place to start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some references when
Yeah, and they're all, you know, governed by that and reviewed and inspected and, but I just didn't know how to go forward. And if you know something that I don't, boy, educate me.
Refer to the subcommittee on science.
Well, you know,
They can tackle this one.
I've got thick skin when it comes to signage. And, you know, I've worked with some pretty renowned developers in my life, and they will tell you signage is the be-all, end-all of retail development. And as he said, as they've told me, and even the initial streetscape committee that coordinated signage on the street, there were some very militant members on the board who said, you know, Mr. Sullivan, I've never known a business to go out of business because of the size of its sign. Okay, gotcha. Mr. Sullivan, have you ever heard of El Bulli, the Spanish restaurant? I said, yeah. They said it's the hardest restaurant in the world to get into. 88,000 reservations for only 800 seats per year. No sign. I mean, how do you, I'm just a young guy, you know, respecting my elders at that time. So I'm sorry the trees grew and blocked signs, but the board back then didn't care. They wouldn't be sympathetic with the audience tonight. I am, I understand that, but, you know, times have changed. You know, marketing has changed, you know, how people get around have changed, you know? Well, exactly.
I guess we have nothing. We have A10, kennels, livery, and boarding stables,
What
riding academies.
What was the section again?
A10.
Eight?
A10.
A10.
Kennels, livery, and boarding stables and riding academies. That's the closest we come to any kind of.
Does it fall into a B zone, though?
What does E mean?
Yes.
A yes?
Yeah, special exception.
Okay, B, ES, what's ES?
Special exception.
B zone.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Except for B3
Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand that.
and B,
4,
no, B3D.
B3D, okay, I
That's it.
understand. Thank you all.
That's the closest we can get at this
Yeah,
point in
it's a
time.
path forward. That's all. I need to provide that. So, I'll try to come down and visit you. You're new here, so. Any help you need, I have a long history on stuff.
Q can be a great resource.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, use them if you have to.
I reside here as well. All right, thank you again for all your time. Take care.
All right. Anything else? Let's close this up.
Good night, all.
Nothing else? I hear motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. We're done. Thank you. Don't forget, we're gonna have the special meeting in 2 weeks.